it's just a matter of getting the scope of the project together and deciding when to start.
Yeah, I think we have a pretty good handle on it. They brought a guy from Cache Valley Electric, a really competent guy, and I think we have it pretty well scoped, and you say, that's what we'd like to do, and we'll start it.
So
I just need a point of contact to who I'm gonna work with,
do
and
we have a site on, that we're proposing?
Oh, yeah. Just right to the north of the dumpsters, conduits were extended out there for 2 charging stations. There's 4 conduits, and Mark and the electrician identified that those would support 2 individual charging stations, each station having 2 connections. So we just decided we'd start out with 1 charging station that would have 2 connections. And see
So what
the
do we
use
have to
was.
do on our side to take the next step?
Well, again, it kind of comes down to what.
yeah, I'll
Grant
assign a
says.
project manager on my part, and, you know, explore what permits we might have to get, or whatever that might look like. But,
Rob, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just suggest Mr. Tingy appoint someone as the project manager on that. It would probably go best with Matthew, if I may suggest.
We'll let Tim decide, yeah.
Is there a significant, I assume the idea is we'll provide these
The power.
to the public. Is there a significant ongoing cost to the city to provide power to the public to charge cars?
I asked Mark whether or not there was a way of deferring that expense to the user, of paying, you know, with a card or something. And he said that the type of machines that they were anticipating to put in didn't have any type of charging. They could have a meter that would indicate the number of the amount of electricity that was used, so we could put a cost to it. But
I could be way off. I thought I read that a charge is about $10 worth of power.
I've never
You
heard.
mean for how many hours?
Well, one vehicle,
Full
full
charge.
charge, $10, so if you had.
Now, that could be way off,
That
but
sounds off to
that's
me,
the
but-
number that's in my head.
So what you're thinking about is the fiscal note.
Yep.
Well, I was just researching a car on Saturday, test driving one, and for me, it was nothing,
Not even close.
not
to
even
that.
close to that,
Yeah,
like for a
I
month.
could be way off,
Yeah.
so.
Maybe we need to figure that out. but-
But I think that's a question we want to have answered before we proceed, because if it's, are we talking about a $500 a month cost to the city to put it there, or are we talking $200 a month to the city, or more, or whatever it is?
12.
I have a question too. Didn't we have conversations with Rocky Mountain Power about the same thing? So we don't want to double up one or the other. Is there another offer you guys want to make if we went with Rocky Mountain for the?
you know, there are some things that we already participate in.
A lot.
I wouldn't say it's a lot. I think we're looking for other opportunities. And if this one isn't the priority, well, let's talk about something else. I know we have a victims advocacy thing that we'd really like to help with,
Thank you.
but, you know, what's the city's priority?
We need a dog park.
Well, I mean, I guess personally, I like to see, you know, what your facility produces, if there's a way that we can offset it. And so the electric vehicle, it seems to be a nice pairing of the two, rather than something that's just sort of out there. If we can.
No, it's a great project for us.
Right.
I know Mark's passionate about it. He would love to be the project manager on this. And we don't have to just limit it to this one project. I mean, want to be
You
an
guys have been
ongoing
helping with us for
participant.
years and years and years now, on a variety of things. I mean, you helped the police with things,
Yeah.
we even worked on
We paved alongside the
more
pool.
mix, was it?
Yeah, we paved the road along by the pool. There's a couple things outside of this.
We did an overlay of Bywater Park years ago, and some of those things, and, we helped sponsor.
We just need your help finding good projects.
I think it's a great project. Thank you.
So I guess what we may want to do then is, again, understanding your willingness, is maybe to ask him, look at the logistics of moving ahead, as far as Councilman Shelton's question, as far as what's the ongoing cost to us, so that we can understand, and also if we need to maybe even partner with Rocky Mountain Power in some way to mitigate those concerns later on.
On panels.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking, too. Solar panels.
Solar panels,
Yeah.
yeah. Seems like we have to, maybe we need to be thinking globally rather than,
Yeah, yeah, we need to kind of figure out what we're doing
Well,
on a broader perspective, so we can.
that's a good point. And later on the agenda, when we start talking about priorities, we can, and a big piece of that, of the retreat we had several months ago was looking at those things more globally, so we may want to make that in, but we just appreciate Granite Construction's willingness to partner on that as well as other things, and keeping us awareness.
We've installed these at our office. They've been hugely successful. It's nice to
How many
have.
stations do you have at your office?
We have a single two-station at our office on the Warm Springs Road and up in West Haven. And we have 3 employees driving electric vehicles, so now it's a competition to get there.
Yeah.
We also have one up here at the
Mayor,
Yeah, please.
so if you find out the cost issues, and they're not overly significant, and we can email that out, is it a priority for you to move forward with this, contingent upon us making sure the costs and the impacts to the city are minimal?
Thoughts?
If Rocky Mountain can do it, maybe they can't do it.
I don't think they can do what Granite is offering to do.
Oh, okay.
They're not gonna just give us
Then
a
let's
charging
move forward.
station.
Rocky Mountain was gonna put a drop.
I think that
Just
it's
drop
like
on the pole.
30%.
A service drop.
Yeah, that was the extent
Let's do it then.
Okay, we're in.
Yeah, I'm all for being productive if something happened, but again, I don't want to lose focus on the global picture as well as suggested, and I think that comes out, and as Tim talks to us later today, we look at some more long-term goals and other things, but Councilor Shelton brings up a good point, if there's a long-term fiscal goal, we at least should know what that is before we proceed. If it's-
Well, I think we're up to $18 a charge down in 5, based off of Google, so it's like,
For how many minutes though?
that was, one was based on an annual 15,000 miles, and the other one was
Right.
based on charging 120 kilowatt hours on
I mean,
a,
it's-
to fully
it's-
charge a Tesla.
It's different for somebody that's coming to a meeting for an hour to plug in versus if one of the staff is here for 8 hours. And you can evaluate that on, as we talk about what things are important to our staff, maybe it's important that there is a charging station, and that is a cost that we want to bear. But it seems like, it's hard to look at it, like I said, and just
Well, again, conceptually, and not to overuse that word today, but conceptually, I think it's something we sure want to consider, that we want to be a part of our side here, just understanding all the parameters behind it. Yeah. Okay, so I think we said yes to your question, but giving answers to those things as we proceed.
And our scope will be to pull power over to a charging station, install a single 2-car station with the capacity to add another one.
Fast charging stations or standard ones, or, we know?
I don't know what they are. I have the literature on it, but I can't answer. But they're similar to the ones we've installed. But I also will certainly work to make sure it's adequate for what you want to do before we purchase it.
And the other one, I mean, if the city's gonna foot the bill, then we need to find some justification for that somewhere, whatever it may be. It's offsetting and doing some sort of public good, I think that's probably a requirement.
What I understand, so Rick, is that Tim T here, our city manager, will be the contact person immediately, and he may assign to someone else, and to do the analysis and see how it all fits in the timing and things like that.
I know Mark would be a good partner to help with that, so.
Yeah, and Mark is a resident of Cottonwood Heights, so he's down in Lake Charles district.
Okay.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you. Very, very generous.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you very much.
that'll be a good one. And then the victims advocacy,
Yeah, can we talk about that at all?
we talked about a $2,000 donation for that.
Yeah, we use it for a couple things. One, most of it goes to victim advocacy, but we buy the gift cards we use to reward the employees for specific acts of courage or going over and above, so that we aren't using taxpayer dollar to do it. We also use the gift cards to give them to them, and we use Uber cards, and we have hotel cards that we buy, gift cards to buy necessities like diapers and formula and things like that. So when that money's donated, it goes into the city account, and then we just draw on it and buy gift cards so that we can control. We're not giving out cash to people. So
Okay, and I'll work with you on
that
getting
would be
that,
wonderful. Thank you.
No, the Good Philanthropy Program is a great program. Yeah, I appreciate your help.
Okay, you know, the other things we participate in are several movies in the park, golf tournament, the 5K, which I like, but, you know, Paul stops traffic on me every year and holds me up. But
I'll work on getting you a special pass, Rick.
And
That's not a 5K, that was a long one.
yeah, and then there's also the dashboard at the ice arena. But, you know, these are the things today, but again, if there's other priorities from the city, please let us know.
You guys, you have great community partners, we appreciate it very much. Yeah, you know, stuff. And if you're running in the 5K, it's just a month away.
What's that?
If you're running in the 5K, it's a month away if you have to train.
I know.
Well, you beat the-
I've got to beat you. You were injured last one, right?
No. Ran last one.
Okay. Sorry,
But
after
it
I
went
thought
slow.
you were.
It's
Okay.
very slow.
All right.
If you beat the mayor, you get a special ribbon,
That's right.
at least for one more year. Hi, Rick, thank you very much.
Good. All right. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Good to meet you guys.
Thanks.
Okay, Dan, public relations report.
Thank you. Start out with the media reports. And these are going back at least 2 weeks, so some of them are a little older. Most having to do with crime, so I'll leave that up for your comment. We're not playing. There we go.
District Attorney Sid Gill, back here closer to home, says he will not file criminal charges against a Cottonwood Heights police officer who shot and killed an armed robbery suspect. A Cottonwood Heights police officer shot and killed Zane Anthony James back in May. Police say he was on the run after he was a suspect in 2 robberies earlier that day. DA Sid Gill says he believes Officer Davies would successfully prove at trial that he fired to save his life or that of others. Teen boys accused of sexually assaulting class
We've already discussed that. There's not a lot of others.
Yep.
done.
Could move forward. And Officer Davies is now in hearing.
A man is in jail tonight after ramming a police car in Cottonwood Heights. An officer tried to make a traffic
That's not good.
stop around 11:45 last night, and the driver of the car kept going and sped east on Fort Union Boulevard before hitting another officer's car. The driver, Jesus Gonzalez, eventually drove across someone's yard and hit a parked car. Officers say Gonzalez already had felony warrants on top of new charges: fleeing, aggravated assault for ramming a police car, DUI, and other drug-related infractions.
A house fire in Bountiful claims the wife.
It's interesting now we say infractions, drug-related infractions. He was a violent criminal, wanted for armed robbery and other crimes, and just didn't want to stop, and they had him boxed in, and he wanted to just continue to ram the police cars. So we don't like it, but it's sort of the cost of doing business. So the officers came away safe, and that's what matters.
So 4-year-old Bailey Wilson has to wear ankle braces and she has to use a walker in order to get around, but soon, thanks to that surgery, she might not have to. You'll find Bailey to be your average 4-year-old.
That's true.
Always playing. She loves to pretend.
I can make tea out of these.
Hovak the cat keeps her laughing. Super silly. But Bailey can't always do what other 4-year-olds can. Some things are even impossible.
She sees other kids dancing and she wants to so badly. And she's mentioned it a few times.
Bailey has what's called spastic diplegic cerebral palsy.
She's not able to walk without a walker or without holding her hands.
To Bailey, it's the dragon.
His name is Spasticity.
Spasticity the dragon makes getting around tough.
As she gets older, it's only going to get harder.
The Wilson family recently found out about a procedure that could change Bailey's life.
She should be able to walk independently without a walker across all environments, which is a dream come true.
On Wednesday, they got a call. The surgery is a go. She'll fly to St. Louis in January.
Just pulls at my heartstrings because the freedom that it's going to allow for her, it's unreal.
Their knight is a neurosurgeon.
Dr. Park.
Bailey already knows Dr. Park's name and what he's going to do.
He's gonna fight the dragon.
He'll battle the dragon so that she can dance and do everything
Hey, Mom.
any other 4-year-old can do.
I would love to give you a hug.
Her Bailey surgery is set for January 29th. Her family says after that she'll undergo a year of therapy so that she can learn to walk.
Close that. It's just a great story. Hopefully things work out for her.
Federal prosecutors in Utah are now charging drug dealers with overdose deaths. The punishment up to life in prison. But defense attorneys argue an overdose isn't homicide. News 3 Utah's Haley Higgins finds out what's behind the push and the precedent it will set for Utah courtrooms.
Just yesterday, the U.S. Attorney here in Utah amended an indictment against a drug dealer for an overdose back in 2016. Now, this is the second time since pressure from the Justice Department to aggressively target those contributing to the opioid epidemic. When DEA agents suited up to raid Aaron Shamo's Cottonwood Heights home in November 2016, they were aware chemicals they believe were used to transform powdered fentanyl into counterfeit oxycodone and Xanax were dangerous.
We're dealing with substances here which are deadly to the touch.
According to the updated indictment, Shamo's pills did kill on June 13, 2016. A person only identified by the initials RK.
I think the government's trying to make a statement.
Shamo's accused of running an opioid drug ring that distributed more than 800,000 pills. Shamo's attorney, Greg Skordas, says federal prosecutors have typically shied away from these types of charges.
Not something that you see very often. It's not something we've even done historically in our country until now.
Adam Hemmelgarn and 2 other men face similar charges after federal prosecutors say they provided cyclopropyl fentanyl to a 22-year-old man who died March 14th in Weber County. If convicted, the punishment is life in prison. That's dramatically more than Edward Foreman, who's serving 16 months for giving a deadly dose of heroin to a Provo mother in July of 2016. Utah Attorney General John Huber's office declined to talk about the change in prosecution. The News for Utah discovered this document from U.S. Attorney Jeff Sessions, written on March 20th. It urges federal prosecutors across the country to consider every lawful tool, even capital punishment, to punish drug-related crimes. Regarding the opioid epidemic, it reads, "In the face of all this death, we cannot continue with business as usual." Gordis says it's a long shot for federal prosecutors.
I think these cases are hard to prove because it's going to be very difficult for the government to establish that this specific death was caused by some transaction by these young people in Cottonwood Heights, Utah, years ago.
Shamo's trial is scheduled for mid-January. Reporting in the newsroom, Haley Higgins, News 4 Utah.
Backyard.
That's a federal case. We don't have anything to do with it.
Hopefully it starts here.
A new warning tonight for anyone getting a package delivery this holiday season. Home security video shows what neighbors thought to be a porch pirate. Jim Spiewak got a hold of the video. Jim, this warning is not really about thieves trying to steal your packages, but something just as important.
Yes, Shauna, this warning is coming from the Boy Scouts, and the video that I obtained caused a huge confusion and uproar in a community, and this is important for anyone that gets a package delivered during the holiday season, because this can happen to anyone on any porch, anywhere. Watch as this young man walks onto the front porch of a Cottonwood Heights home earlier this week. He quickly turns around and walks away. The video was posted online, and neighbors initially thought he was a thief who got away empty-handed.
It's very difficult these days with people stealing stuff off of porches, and really sad that people are doing that.
Come to find out, the kid, which we've blurred his face because he did not commit a crime, is not a porch pirate. He's a Boy Scout. Mark Griffin is a Scout executive of the Great Salt Lake Council.
And there are people going door to door doing that fundraising campaign through their wards.
Griffin says Scout troops are collecting donations all over the valley, but this Scout was not dressed in his uniform, which worried neighbors. I asked what the policy is when Scouts pick up donations.
Fundamentally, if it's a council fundraising program, we would like our Scouts to wear their uniforms, both to show that they are Scouts to someone that it is a legitimate fundraiser, but also to show the scouting around the community.
Griffin says he will notify all troops after seeing this video.
Hopefully, our Scouts are following the Scout oath and law and are behaving themselves and wearing their uniforms so that you can see them.
And know the difference between a thief and a Scout. Now, the woman who gave us that video, she did not want to be interviewed for this story, but it's important to note that these Scout drives are going to be going on throughout the rest of the year. If you'd like to know where they're going to be, to keep a much closer eye on your packages and know who's coming up to your front door, I've put a link to those drives over on our website, KUTV.com. Shauna?
Jim, thank you.
Discussion?
We were never contacted on that, so.
No. It was just something went viral, they picked up in the news. I don't know that the boy was wearing his uniform under his jacket, but that's something you can't see in the video. That's all we have for the, at least the media reports. Everything else is in staff reports and the newsletters going along. Please take note of the next month's schedule, which is due on, I think, the 13th of November, for the next council and chief articles.
So, does Callie have our December?
Yes. Tally's up, and then it's Christine in January, which will be due in December, second week of December.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any questions to Dan? If not, let's move ahead. If you look at your business meeting agenda, which is attached, we have 2 standing monthly. Bryce will be presenting our monthly financial report. And Chief Watson will be doing our UFA report.
Yes, sir.
Correct. We have 2 action items. The first action item is adopting the Watson's Boulevard Master Plan. We talked about doing it a couple weeks back, and Scott, you had some questions, and did you get your questions resolved?
If it was like, what the concerns I have were not fairly outweighed by the time and effort it would take to try to improve what Mike had already done. Well, Mike and everyone.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it came out of that. I'm okay with it.
Okay. And I know that, I think there were some more questions from Councilman Shelton. Would you like to hold this? I mean, you have some questions you would like resolved in some language?
I do.
Okay. Any objections? Okay, maybe give an example of what some of that language is so that we can all get a flavor of it, and then we'll.
It relates to this section of planning objectives that are gravel pit planning objectives. So objective 1 is shape a canyon-oriented walkable urban place in the gravel pit. And if you read through that, you find a host of things that I think we either need to tighten up or, from my perspective, change. So that's where you can find this
the second issue. So Mike, you proposing that we hold off, give a chance to work on some of that language?
That would be great if we could.
I'm fine with that, it's just more wordsmithing, I don't think it's maybe a little bit of intent, it's more wordsmithing to me, but, and maybe a little bit of intent when we talk about a gravel pit, but I don't think it's material, but.
So how are we gonna communicate that amongst us?
Well, we'll all have a chance to see it.
So you'll send a red line to Mike's? You're gonna provide input to Mike, and then he's gonna provide some red line back?
Go ahead.
So I think probably what we would do is the three of us would sit down and work through these proposed modifications and we'd redline those, get them out to council for review prior to the next meeting. So that's how I would prefer to do it, is the three of us sit down and work through that. If that works.
I'd love to sit down too, and if someone else would rather sit down.
We'll try to keep plenty of time so we can have the red lines to you so you can review them, and if you have any questions, we can discuss that as well. So.
What generally is your concern with the intent, I guess, is helpful? Because sometimes when you look at a red line, if you don't have this intent.
Sense of the intent. I think there are a host of things here that pen this in a way that is going to be difficult for the council as the public reads the intent, reads their perception of the intent. And I think from my perspective, there's got to be some view of the fact that this is not our ground. We have a planning role here, but we're not going to build here. We're not going to construct. We're not going to create here. And that some of that language is here.
Okay. So we'll have a chance to look at that. Mike, comments?
No, I think some of the concerns that were addressed, I see where you're coming from. There are some easy tweaks we can make that change the language. I think address some of your concerns, but not modify what we're after with this planning objective. And we, as staff, want to be cautious because some of these are ambitious plans that we'd like to see realized at the gravel pit. We want to make sure that intent is left in there as much as it can be, given that this whole planning process is very public and public feedback based. But we're happy to sit down and clean up language and clarify our role in this process as best we can.
I guess I would say I hope that we don't forestall any other great ideas that could be out there. I'm sure it's
We'll have a chance to all look at it. I appreciate everyone getting involved or reading it. That's important. It's a master plan, they're living documents, they change, but we don't want to paint us in the corner either.
Sure.
Okay? So we'll hold it in today and give Mike a chance, or anyone else who would like to review it through time. Scott, if you have comments, and we'll bring it back as soon as possible. Again, this is the Wasatch Boulevard Master Plan, which is all the way from Little Cottonwood Canyon to 6200 South, basically. The other action item is appointing Scott Jurgis as the city's Finance Administrative Services Director. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
The process and what we went through?
Yeah, and to clarify, and I haven't told you this, Mayor, the pronunciation of his last name is Jurgis.
Jurgis, not Jurgis.
Yeah. So Jurgis.
That's good thing to know.
Yeah. Anyway, we went through a process to select this individual, and we're very excited that he has accepted this position. We need your advice and consent for this to be formalized. If it is, he will begin on November 1st. A little bit of his background: he has a CPA degree, undergraduate in accounting from University of Utah, master's in business administration from Utah State. Anyway, has great background background. He most recently worked for UPD as the chief financial officer, and definitely dealt with budgets and a variety of the other financial aspects. So recommending approval of that.
Okay, part of that process included, we took applications and had 30 or 40. Shorted this down to 8, I understand. Department heads along with the city manager and Paul interviewed those 8 and shortlisted down to a couple, then through a final review, checked references.
We checked all the references.
Pretty good with that, and they were all outstanding.
Outstanding, yes.
So any questions of that department? I think it's city manager's hire, and it's without consent unless someone objects. Okay. And the start date would be November 1st. And then we have a consent calendar after that, which is just minutes. Any discussions further on that agenda for this meeting? Hearing none. Let's go back to our work session. And the first item we have after the beginning of the meeting agenda for the business meeting would be under staff reports. It was proposed a couple months back to consider changing our facility use policy here at City Hall to allow alcohol in private activities or events. And that time we asked, Robbie gave us some feedback, Shane gave us some feedback previously. So now at a point where Shane, maybe you could turn it over to you and you could summarize what it would take to allow alcohol use. Then we still have to decide from the council if that's something you want to proceed on or something you do not want to change. At least we'll have the information before we decide.
I've gone through the facility use policy that was adopted several years ago after City Hall was completed and made the changes in a red line format that I think will accomplish allowing alcohol service to occur at the City Hall facility. These changes are mainly on page 4 of the red line that you have, and then there's another substantive change at the bottom of page 5. There are a number of other changes that I just made trying to clean this document up a little bit from the current draft. The approach that I've followed in drafting these alcohol provisions is based on an assumption that what we're wanting to allow would be alcohol service in connection with purely private functions, for which a license is not required from the Alcoholic Beverage Control Department. And so that's the basis for the drafting. Those sorts of events could not be open to the general public. There could not be a charge, either directly or indirectly, either an entrance fee or a charge for the meal. And the list of invitees would have to be specific people that had been invited. The division feels that a wedding reception is a prime example of a purely private event. Purely private events can have alcohol service without a license from the division. Again, that's the pathway that we're trying to follow, or I've tried to follow with these changes. So just the requirements are that the alcohol service has to be in full compliance with the Alcoholic Beverage Control Act, that it can only occur at a truly private, no-charge social event, that the alcohol has to be served by an alcohol server who's both licensed by the state of Utah and is insured as such under a liability policy that has at least $1 million in coverage. And then we require the name of the alcohol server and the copy of the state license to be provided to the City Hall use coordinator at least 5 days before the event. And then the rental fee also, the otherwise standard rental fee, will be increased by the amount of additional insurance that the city will get. And this would typically be a rider to the city's liability policy. It would be obtained through the Utah Local Governments Trust. And I'm proposing that the amount of the additional coverage be the amount of the cap on Utah under the Utah Governmental Immunity Act. Currently, that's $2.4559 million. And beyond that, the city should be insulated. That number will change every few years as inflation erodes the coverage amount of the insurance. And so I've tied back into the Utah administrative rule that sets the amount of the exclusion. And that additional fee would need to be paid again at least 5 days before the event. If we require payment of other fees before then, why then it would need to be paid at that time. And so those are the things that I thought of specific to alcohol. The change on page 10 is the addition of an indemnification provision. This isn't targeted at alcohol services. It's targeted at any use of
page 10, there's not one.
Excuse me, page 5. Item 10 on page 5. Sorry. The indemnification provision is generic across the board for all renters of the City Hall facility. This is being done at the suggestion of the Utah Local Governments Trust under their TULIP program. They feel that any time the city is allowing, a city is allowing someone to use their facility, they need to get an indemnification back from the user, that the user will indemnify and hold harmless the city from costs and fees and causes of action, et cetera, that may arise out of the use. So this indemnification provision pretty much tracks what the Utah Local Governments Trust suggests incorporating in these sorts of rental agreements. So those are the changes, and I'm happy to entertain questions or give you a chance to digest it over the next while, and we can talk about it again, whatever you prefer.
Has Ann Epsilon taken a stab at this, or?
I haven't shown it, Dan.
Go ahead, please.
So I've spoken to Ann about this as well, and just some of the operational issues or perspective that she has. There would need to be care and cleaning, most likely, if any of the alcohol spilled. What she's indicated is that it smells the carpet, or makes the carpet smell, and there would have to be cleaning of that probably immediately the next day. And then that could impact what...
Is that the same as if you were to spill a Coke?
It's not. She said this is just strictly from operations perspective. Getting that smell out would be important to get out before you rent it out to other individuals. You could still have a stain that could be addressed. This was her perspective on that. So if you have that smell that is occurring, and I'm not an expert on the smell of this in the carpet, but that was one of her issues. The other is, I asked her about how often we have these requests. She says typically, usually about twice a month. So that gives you an understanding of how many people are requesting this. The only other issue from an operational perspective is we do have some of the security staff or the room monitors that are underage, and we would just have to work on modifying that schedule to have those that are overage that would monitor this type of issue. That's her perspective.
Another thing I think someone on the council mentioned when we first discussed this a few months ago was whether the council wants to look at the rental fee structure to see if it's needs to be modified. And something that I learned when I was looking at holidays facility use policy is that they only rent certain rooms in the facility. For example, the council chambers are on the list of rooms that can be rented, and so, again, that's something that the council could take a look at.
Okay, questions from the council? This is something that we need to see if you want to pursue, just change the opinion. The questions of Shane as far as liability, that was our concern, I know that was brought up a couple months ago.
I think this looks pretty thorough, and if we give it a try and need to come back and revisit it, this isn't good.
You know, any concern being next to the school and the church is, I know, as far as licensing, it's...
Because there's no license required, the proximity to churches and schools isn't an issue. If we get into, if we were to go beyond just doing it in connection with private events, the way this is constructed, well, then it would be an issue on DABC licensing.
And it's primarily a distance issue.
Yeah.
600 and 200 foot distance depending upon the location.
Well, I for one have mixed feelings on it. I mean, I want to be open, but I just sometimes have a question if we need to have alcohol at a city hall. But again, that's my...
Can you, Shane, it sounds like you looked at other cities. Which other cities have this policy? It sounds like Holiday does.
Holiday doesn't that I could find online, but...
Sorry, they do not?
Not that I could find online.
They do allow it.
I'm just saying that you look at their building rental and there's nothing about it.
They don't even have a policy. They have, you can call and just request it. So.
That's the only other city I looked at. So. But we can survey that if that's what you want. But the extent of my research was looking on Holiday's website.
Yeah, if you're interested in more, we definitely be in contact.
Well, I guess from my perspective, I mean, we have the police department that's connected to the building. And if people are concerned that people are going to over imbibe, and I think our liquor laws are changing come January to point, I don't even know what it is, point
0.05.
0.05, which is basically, for somebody of my size, it could be like a drink.
No, it's 2. But
For me.
It's always 2.
Oh, it's always 2. Okay. I don't know, it just seems to me that we have all these safeguards that are in place and will be in place that, and the fact that we get 2 calls per month, and none of those 2, I don't know how many would even transfer into an actual event. I mean, I don't know, and I think it's important, but I do think it's important to consider the rental fee structure, because I think overall for the building itself, even irregardless of this, that we have a problem with our upkeep and our rental fees, so.
Well, that's what I asked about, Ann, because I knew that I was kind of expecting it broader. I mean, that this specific, and for what it is, that's fine, but I was expecting a broader review. I know she had expressed some concerns in just operationally, some of the things were going on, including the rental fees, so.
But I think if somebody wants to have some big, Greek, exciting wedding, they're probably not going to come to the Cottonwood Heights building to do that. But I think that I mean, I was asked to bring this up, so it was my request, so obviously I'm supportive of it, but I don't really see that.
She's been to one of our weddings before.
Now, we've had requests a couple times over the years from the Arts Council with, I guess, wine tasting with.
And this would not allow that,
Right.
because the general public is invited, and by definition, that's a event that's going to need a license.
That's the one I'm
Let me be clear on that.
I kind of follow with you, Mayor. I'm kind of, I'm mixed. I can certainly see both sides of the argument. But, like I say, some of those other things, there were other things in here that we need to, that need to be dealt with, the fee structure and some other things as well, so. I would be interested in possibly finding out what other city facilities in the county do or don't. If it's 17 to 1, that's one thing. I mean, I don't know.
Our citizens pay a lot of money for this building,
Yes, they did.
and I think we should offer it up to as many citizens as we can. And I hate to think that we have regulations that wouldn't allow some of our citizens to use it for a certain event. So I guess that's.
And I think that if we gave it a trial, a lot of these fears that are floating around would probably subside with reality.
But I guess we need one more, otherwise it's dead.
Right.
You know, I guess your question about, do we, it doesn't prohibit anyone from still renting the building, it's just we prohibit the alcohol. I know, and, you know, we're a couple dozen public facilities in Salt Lake County over the years. The one experience I've had where we provided a variance for a community center for an event, it didn't turn out, in my experience, to be a good experience. Because there's immediate abuse and others sneaking in alcohol. It was a dance, so it was, you know, but that's been years ago. So I haven't had a good experience with it personally. So,
That was 1 out of 1 or 1 out of?
1 out of 1.
1.
Yeah, talked us into it. We did it, it was Cottonwood Community Center. Down here with, we added in the gymnasium for our city, tried to follow those things, but it really attracted some people we couldn't control and it got out of hand. So that's one.
Doesn't sound like it was a private function.
It was private.
But other elements came in.
Other elements came in. Once we found out.
What about our parks?
Parks, not allowed in any parks.
And that's fairly consistent, isn't it, Shane?
It was when we did it.
It was the first thing, one of the first things we did. Because it was legal
Well,
here.
but I mean, that's consistent just about anywhere. You're not gonna find a lot of cities that will allow.
But in Salt Lake County, it's not allowed in any of the county parks, but you can go in county council and get a variance, which for softball tournaments, and it worked out well for decades at the Valley and Cottonwood Regional Complex, and they developed beer only. Did that variance.
So they allowed a case-by-case variance, be able to pick up a
Every year you have to go in and make a special request, and it was tough to get it, but we got it. We paid for it.
So you've had a good experience.
A good experience on beer at the softball conference. So So I guess, Mike, comment your position? Maybe what, Scott, you're still saying you're. Right now, let me come back around to Tim as the city manager here and staff. Is it, what do you feel about having that in your building? Is it unfair to ask you at this point? Or?
Yeah, I don't have experience in this type of situation. I think we can make it work from an operational perspective with some of the issues. I think the question, and I think it benefits certain groups that want to have the private weddings or things such as that's fine. The question I would have is, from the general public or the school district, would it ever cause concerns with them that we're allowing it in such close proximity? I think that's a question I would ask. And would we get criticism from that? I don't know the answer to that, but
we could ask.
We can, like I say, we can operationally we can make that work if that's what the council wants to do. So.
Mayor, could I make a suggestion? Maybe if we're a little uncertain, maybe charge somebody to, on staff, me and whoever you want, to poll the other cities in the county to see if alcohol service is available in their facilities, and if so, whether they have had issues.
Yeah, that's the thing. If so, what's the experience been?
Yeah.
If it's been no problem, if it's been
I mean, if Ann did that, that would probably be helpful, because she'd be the one that would probably be looking at it. I mean, she's the one that does the approval.
Well, Ann actually has a committee she works with.
That's right, she's got that other group that she's working with as well.
That's what I said, you should poll them.
I'm actually connected with a lot of the public information officers in around the city, and I could ask them as well, because they would know that. So I'd be happy to volunteer to help out.
Why, yeah.
Yeah, if you want us to do that, we'll get that assigned, we'll
Yeah,
poll a
I'd
number
like
of
to have
communities.
that, yeah.
And then come back with the results if you'd like.
You know, at the same time, Ann may be a good one, if she's gonna do that, look at this fee structure. I mean, we'd set it to be affordable and usable and friendly to the citizens. Does that still apply, or is that actually really covering some of the incremental marginal costs or not?
I think the incremental costs rose after we set the fee
And that may be
structure.
the case. If that's the case, then it's worth, we should probably get that reviewed. And
I'll look for the holiday policy. I think I have it in my email, and I'll forward it to you, Shane.
Shoot Jeff said for me too, and we'll know we won't need to contact them.
Or you can, why don't you just contact them, then you get it from them directly, but they do have a policy.
Okay. Is that all right? Everyone? We'll move that direction first and get that additional information and then decide how to proceed.
Can I make one
Please.
point of clarification?
Please do.
With this, we'll pull the other cities. Do you want us to look more deeply at the fee structure as well?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to-
And I mean, we've done this for a couple of years now, and asked Ann or others, is there some other operational things we really need to look at this? Could there have been some hiccups? Ann would be the most knowledgeable that she's handled it. There's other issues that she'd like to see addressed or brought up.
Well, as I've worked with them, the biggest thing is just the cleanup and the maintenance. You know, the cost barely covers the time to have an attendant come in and wash the room. And then we end up having carpets that are just getting dirty on a regular basis.
That would be the same for any event.
Yeah.
Coke, or Sprite.
Right, but he's just talking about the
right?
fee structure generally.
Oh,
He's
yeah, I'm not
talking
referring to
about-
alcohol.
I'm not talking about
or
alcohol at all.
That's what we're observing is just the amount of wear and tear on the building, the number of people coming through, and so that's why Anna's suggesting that we adjust the
I think we've all talked about our overall fee structure.
cost, you know,
Yeah.
to just
Needs to be reviewed.
cover those costs a little bit better.
Okay.
You know, those types of things that I think she should.
Yeah, and even that come back with a recommendation on the fee. you know, is that we look at it. In the county, if all the county facilities have a formal document that identifies multi-purpose rooms for all of the facilities.
I would imagine fee should be sufficient enough that we're cleaning the room at the end of each event, and perhaps a little extra left over such that recarpeting can be periodically scheduled, yeah.
But we just also don't want to price it out of the market because there's a public.
No,
we wanna
So there's a fine balance there.
The other one is we may want to, I mean, some of these things, I don't know, I don't recall. Are there types of functions anywhere that delineated about which rooms can be used for what type of activities?
Maybe we should put that in our inquiry.
Well,
amongst the cities.
I mean,
Just,
on
I mean,
the
I can see
first,
some things that work really well in the council chambers, you know, a meeting where you're sitting down, talking, that would be different than obviously what you do in the community room.
yeah, I don't think that this says you can only do, you know, this activity in that room or that activity in this room. I think
That
that
might be
all the
something
rooms
else.
are available.
Maybe whoever's researching to find out. It just seems that there's some that are maybe more appropriate for one place and may not be for another. You know, this room for certain things that a bit different than the other three, I guess is what I'm saying. And we may want to.
Clearly.
To me, the meeting rooms, the community room, that's one thing. The council chambers, we have a tremendous investment in woodwork, the dais, electronics. I've always wondered about that one myself, but nobody elected me
That's my
anything,
question,
so
let's find out.
it's your decision.
So
And we'll decide what we're going to.
I know Ann's allowed that room to be used for board meetings of condo associations, things like that, that would be similar to the council meeting. The biggest challenge we have is that the room monitors continually find mostly children and adolescents leaving the community room and going over into there. And so I've asked Ann to please have the room monitors lock the doors, keep people out of there. But the other problem is to just go out and look at that carpet and the table in the foyer area. It's been used for
a lot.
All kinds of things where there's a lot of damage to it, kids walking on it and stuff. And so I would call it this: the lower we price it, the less value we put on it, and the less care I think is observed by the people who use it. So that may be another way of looking at it. Is there's places that a gymnasium should be used that I think our community room is being occupied for, and maybe pricing it will help keep some of those people going to the right locations for those.
Well, just through the research, just identify an appropriate pricing.
Mm-hmm.
And the only other thing I would suggest then is that when it comes to cleaning, maybe there's some areas of the building we would not allow food and beverage. You may ask Ann about that.
Yeah, I don't think we allow people to take it in the community, or in the council chambers. We just say that's for.
There's some areas where we do not allow food and beverage.
That's what I'm talking, type of meeting.
Yeah.
So this is simply getting up and talking.
Yep.
It's not a,
No, we don't clear the rooms.
we don't do
We're gonna
refreshments, we're not
games or-
doing that type of things in that room.
And I would prohibit red content.
It's in there.
So that Ann's aware, depending on how this turns out, changes would need to be made to the application form.
Okay, you look at that. Okay. Last but on the agenda, some information that I received from the Central Wasatch Commission, which I think the council will find interesting. I know Shane represents them as their legal counsel as well, so Shane, feel free to switch hats if you want it, if I state something that's oh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of. No, I checked it out. I'm sorry, I'll just go to Shane first. Yeah, I was doing something else. I was jumping to Central Wasatch Commission to do the boss.
Okay.
Bryce has a person, Kelly.
There is a person that is described as a serial grandma requester who resides in Logan, that has been the subject of newspaper articles and views himself as a community watchdog, who has recently started making grandma requests to scores of Utah cities asking for copies of the oaths of office and of the bonds for city officers. You'll recall that when each of you took your position, you were given an oath of office and you signed a copy of that oath of office, which is to be maintained in the city's records. Something you probably weren't aware of is that each elected, the treasurer and some other officers are covered by what's essentially a fidelity bond. And so this person wants to get copies of those oaths of office, wants to get evidence of the bonds, and has made grandma requests to, like I say, scores of Utah cities, to the extent that this is traveling all around the city attorney and arena. Have you gotten your request yet from this person? And so we received our request and are in the process of responding to it. As we went through the process of looking at the oaths of office and looking at the bonding situation, I looked through the statutes and discovered that there is this rather obscure statute that says that in January following a municipal election, the bonds of the city council are approved by the mayor, and the bond of the mayor is approved by the city council. I checked with several other city attorneys. I don't think anybody has been doing this. It's just one of those that has gone below the radar. So what I would like to bring back before the council at the next business meeting is just a little ordinance doing exactly this, and we'll make it retroactive to January, and then we will put on our calendar a little better than we have in the past to do this in the January after an election, and then we will be okay. I think that based on my review of the grandma request, the response will, of providing copies of the oaths of office and of the evidence of the bond will be adequate for this person, and he doesn't seem to be getting down to the level of this resolution. If it proceeds beyond that, if he wants something more, if he starts making claims, why we may have to take some additional actions in the future, but I think that this will be adequate for now, and we will be able easily to deal with any other issues that he may raise. So I just wanted to alert you that there will be kind of this weird resolution coming before you. Our electeds on key officers, the treasurers, the amount of the treasurer's bond is much, much larger because that's the person that's dealing with the money, and that is set by the, I think it's the auditor's office that sets the amount of the bond. I think that Dave is covered by like a $1 million bond, if memory serves. So we're. It appears to me that we're good on the bonding, and we are quite good on the oaths of office. Over 13 years, it looks like some have been misfiled, but as to the current council, everybody has bonds in place, and we go back pretty consistently from there.
I guess you'll figure out how you do it as an ordinance. I'm assuming it would be approved. The mayor to do the council, and council to do mayor. Is that two ordinances?
I think I'll just do it in one. I just think we've got to have something to point to. Yeah, we did that. So by the mayor's signature and by the council's vote, whatever. So yeah.
So you quote the statute in that?
I will.
Where it says councilmen, should it say council members?
You'll have to talk with the legislature about changing that language.
Well, it was 1977. So it has been around.
Okay, any questions of that direction? We'll bring that back at our next business meeting. Now, moving forward on the agenda, an interesting two-day workshop last weekend with the Central Wasatch Commission, where I represent the city, and I think you'll find this interesting. I've made one copy here. This is one thing I'd like you all to see.
You mean many copies of one thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You can pass them.
I had one thing that I.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There was one item that I copied, so we're going to have a copy. The Central Wasatch Commission, which was really got underway about a year ago, just before I took office as mayor. I think there was one formal meeting prior to this calendar year.
Yeah, well, there was one formal meeting in about June or July of last year, and then there was another one or two a little later. But things kind of
really took off this year.
Really took off this year.
Really took off this year, and so there's questions about how they will fund their existence going forward. There are questions about what their action strategy will be, and federal and state legislative priorities. And so we met and talked all about a lot of those, and also the fact that the commission has grown from me as a member of that Central Wasatch Commission is the fact that we have the director of the Utah Department of Transportation as a voting member. Okay, because a lot of these organizations, a lot of memberships, don't have a lot of resources, okay, and part of our discussion is how each city or member organization will contribute each year going forward. You know, some cities have been contributing up to 200,000, some up to 400,000. UTA's an in-kind contribution. Our contribution has been both some in-kind, but also 50,000 a year. I think is what it was, over 100,000 over a couple of years. But what was interesting in this discussion, and I can give people more detail later, because it's all about the central Wasatch, Big and Little Cottonwood Canyon, and Big Mill Creek, and everything in between. What I've handed out to you is something that Carlos Luceros, who's the director of Utah, handed out to us. And I thought this is really interesting and has a direct impact on our city. He talked, and Mike, you're probably well familiar with this. A little bit of detail that I hadn't seen before. He talked about he had $60+ million for he detailed some of the priorities in that EIS study and the things we're working on. If you look at that, there's $50 million that he says is going strictly towards the snow sheds for avalanche risk reduction.
This is what's it's gonna say in EIS.
Yeah, this is what he's saying right now.
And can I throw in here,
Please,
Mike?
please.
The thing that was fascinating to me is he said that the avalanche risk in these canyons is greater by orders of magnitude than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Special case.
Yeah,
Get that presentation here.
Had the avalanche guy come, he said, yeah, this is the place that every guy that's like me in the world knows about.
And we're only talking about
Like
three.
the others.
We're only talking about 3 avalanche sheds, or snow sheds. It details what they are here, which one, white pine.
Look at how long they are, though.
Yeah, wow.
What happens when a car gets sideways in there?
Well, they're
They're
like tunnels. Yeah, you're talking 1,300 feet on one of these things, wow. So anyway,
Length-wise.
yeah, 1,300 feet long.
I don't,
I think they're wider than
right,
quite a ways.
but the road's not that wide.
1,300 feet
I
long.
think it has to be,
Just imagine a bus.
yeah.
Anyway, I thought you'd find this interesting, I sure did. So you can look at that and as far as the snow sheds, and hopefully it eliminates 55% reduction in vehicle avalanche risk. Anyway, that's $50 million of what he has allocated just to do that. The auxiliary lane for SR 210, which is Wasatch Boulevard, and SR 209, which is, I guess, 94 south and 90 south, whatever that is.
Yeah, I should have pulled Google Maps up to, that's where the 94 south merges with.
So there's some issues there, which is 4.6 million. Up at the resort,
Oh,
up
that's
and down.
where my office is. Is that what they're talking about?
What's that?
SR 210 resort
Wasatch
parking.
driveway, that's where, I'm sorry.
Please do, yeah.
Just trying to
That is
understand
right
where it
where
is,
your
that's where my
office
office
is.
is.
Yeah. Well, this is
Interesting,
new, interesting stuff for me, that's why I wanted to share it. So there's 2 million there.
Oh, that's a long lane up there. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, that right lane. Go up that far before you merge.
Yeah, yeah. Trailheads. It talks about those 3 trailheads where they'll add spaces to.
SR, what, this one, the SR 10 resort parking lot intersection improvement?
I don't know if I really understand it, to be honest with you. Okay.
Sounds like it's a combination maybe between the parking right that's there, but I also read it as to mean maybe some improvements of the ones up the canyon at the resorts.
Well,
I don't know.
I know there's some discussion about, because the mayor of Alta is also on our commission, so he has some issues at the resort itself on one of the intersections up there. I know it's part of that, but.
That's talking specifically about a parking lot.
Right.
Parking lot
At
and
the resort,
intersection.
there's an intersection at the parking lot at, as you come out of Snowbird, I know there's an issue there that there's something.
My guess is this is a base of the canyon, the mouth of the canyon.
It could be a
lot.
Well,
So to keep people from driving up the canyon
I actually think the mayor's.
This is
When
up.
you leave Sanford, the queue gets worse as you go up to Alta, and so there's always cops there directing traffic. I don't know if you've seen that.
This is up at the top.
So this is up
at the
at the
resort.
I think that opens it up to be. The point being is they're applicable to both. We're looking at all of them. The 3 trailheads and some parking issues there with new and expanded with White Pine. The bike and pedestrian safety is a common discussion in every meeting. And there's 4.7 million just for that. This next one I thought was really important because this 20 million I hadn't heard about before. That's really the biggest reason I brought it. Maybe you've heard about it, Mike. I knew of the 65 million. I always wondered how they'd be able to continue and do things down Wasatch Boulevard. But there's 20 million of additional funds, I guess, in state funds or federal funds that's above the 60+ million. That's for Wasatch Boulevard. And what I thought was important too is he made it really clear, because this is his outline, that he'll continue to work closely with Cottonwood Heights. He's made that clear over and over again that we will be a player in discussing how we proceed right through this Wasatch Boulevard master plan that I'm talking about.
Can you read the first line though? The last 3-4 words. What is a 5-lane cross section?
So what you see on the
Is it our
on the cover of the plan. So it's 2 lanes in each direction with a middle lane, which is medians and occasional middle turns.
right from between Big and Little Cottonwood, which is different than what our plan states, right?
No, it's not.
I thought ours was 1-1 by.
No, 1 lane in each
West Rapid.
direction.
Yep.
So 5 lanes are required, and what we're asking UDOT to work with us on is that 5th, that outside lane. We think creatively about that, and maybe not dedicate it as a year-round, just another vehicle lane. We look at some options during peak transit hours where buses right in that lane or have some priority there, have signal preemption ability to get the buses through there more quickly. But this section is still a 5-lane configuration.
Like
we're just
highway.
asking them to be creative about that, the 5th lane. But all the models and projections that have been run is the 1 lane in each direction.
Can you show me the picture?
Yeah. It just doesn't meet any level of service demand in the very near future.
No 1 lane in each direction is not a level of service demand.
Because this isn't 5 lanes on the front. Right?
Yeah, that is.
We have.
2 in the center.
But you have trees in the center.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is.
And a 2 and a 2. So
medians with that middle
that
lane.
counts. It has a tree.
Hard to run a bus down that.
It's not a continuous median, but it does show that the middle lane is a turn lane with medians where a turn lane is not required.
The bus lane he's talking about the outside lane for bus traffic, not the middle lane. The middle lane is turn lanes to get in and out of the neighborhood.
Normal traffic and 1 lane of.
During peak or during those types of seasons.
They haven't definitively said it's just a bus lane, but we're asking them to work creatively on it. So the 5-lane configuration, 2 lanes north, 2 lanes south, a middle lane, and as it's demarcated here, it does have a turn arrow on it, but the tree there annotates that where possible we'll put medians, planted medians in there. And that's in an effort to change the design speed and the feel of that corridor.
When I read this, I think 55 miles, 2 lanes either side.
And I would.
Does somebody else see that different? I mean, when you
No,
looked at it, what comes to your mind?
Well, when I looked at it, I'm going, wow, this is all new information. I'm glad to know and just want to make sure that we all interpret whatever it is we all talk about it. You know, I personally didn't, but I'd like us to follow through. And
Yeah, absolutely. This is just a bullet point list of notes here. And every 2 weeks we bring up with John Thomas and Vince with HDR and the EIS team.
I think it's good to throw that on there.
Yeah.
There's $20 million, because I always heard there was not any money to implement anything on Wasatch Boulevard. It was all in Canyon. So that tells me there's some there. So just that we're in tune and we're communicating and we're talking about it so that.
I don't think you'll have a lot of love from District 4 if we extend what we have on Wasatch Boulevard at a gravel pit through our neighborhood.
That's not what we're after here.
But when I read this, I worry about that. I just
Yeah,
worry about that. When the head of UDOT says something and.
Well, I'm sure this was prepared for him.
somebody put this along, but he presented this.
I feel comfortable being excited about this because I know I have the support of my whole district. And I think you know that too from the meetings that we attended together.
Yeah, so we are still emphasizing, we are emphasizing lowering speeds through the heart of the city on Wasatch Boulevard. We've learned that just posting a lower speed limit doesn't work with federal highway standards. So we're after a design speed to decrease the average speed in there through design, back in later with a speed study in coordination with UDOT to try to get that down.
Even though I see that 5-lane cross-section and it raises that question, see everything else I'm hearing and talking to UDOT is that doesn't support that, yet it says it. Does that make sense?
What do you think they intend to do instead of a 5-lane crossing?
Well, I think it may be a 5-lane, but it's a definition of what that 5th lane is.
But, well, and the 5-lane doesn't have to default and ultimately always be asphalt straight across.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're saying here.
We continue to encourage that. Obviously, they're not taking a position on that right now, but any configuration there that we envision, regardless of dedicated bus lanes or not, is a 5-lane configuration. So I think this says 5-lane cross-section and it doesn't define what the use of those 5 lanes
a turn lane is a lane.
Right, yeah. So we are very sensitive to the fact that we don't want to create a highway through that, and that is indirectly to this, is to every.
I thought so, but now that I'm seeing this and I'm looking at that differently, I'm very concerned. So
yeah, we'll make
we're going to keep looking at thank you for extending the review period.
But anyway.
You started. Thank you.
This is why I want this information so that we can all be on the same page. But clearly from UDOT is they want our position articulated to them. They really are going to bend to us more than anybody else, I think.
Yeah, and I think Mike's comments that Carlos says, look through and has been okay with the things that are stated in there. To me, I'm inferring that means that what's in there is probably still doable and can be done in conjunction with this.
Yeah, I'm just coming at it.
But when the layperson reads it, you're right, and that's kind of where I was going. I'd like to get through this and see. I just got all tied up into I just don't have any idea how I can do what I want without screwing something else up. And so, but yeah, if there's a way we can articulate it better, to make sure that it comes across. So when someone just reads it, which people will.
This I don't.
Does it make sense, Mike? Is that what we need to say?
Always hand out in a public meeting.
Okay. Say what we're going to say.
I'm not saying it's something he's putting out on his webpage, but this is what he handed out in a public meeting. And where it refers specifically to Cottonwood Heights and to us, I think it's fair to share.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, it is, we need to give the right interpretation, and we'll talk to UDOT on that. But in all of my dialogue with him, even on the side when he was explaining some things to me, is that I think there's a real sensitivity to Cottonwood Heights and what we want to see happen. I really felt that.
I hope so, because if the Heighties, any indication of how they feel about our input, it's a terrible project, and it continues to be worse. And I don't know if you've headed up there. Before one of your meetings that you go to every couple of weeks, and Tim and I did it. Tim and I did it the other day. I think it's really important that we all, in that too, we all understand how dangerous that is, and may become more so. I mean, it's to be out there and drive is so important to what we do as a city, to understand what our citizens deal with every day. Thank you.
Okay, I can assure you that at least 3 of my children, my wife, will complain that we do that. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. I guess what I need to do is maybe get up there and watch the height and maybe find out.
Well, there's a number of complaints I get. Yeah, right, we get one. But, and I shared that with him as well. And the next one, go ahead.
Before we leave this talking point, if the CWC does their overall plan with the land swap, those resorts are gonna double essentially overnight, right? And Wasatch Boulder.
You're just talking about in terms of occupancy, like, are they gonna grow?
If they trade the federal property and bring it into the resorts, allow them to grow exponentially, are we gonna double traffic on Wasatch Boulevard?
Like Alta for one, that may never happen at all. They would grind the Grizzly Gulch piece. But yeah, even if that grows, just the population of the valley itself, pulling up the canyons, is just going to be immense. That's why this is such an important topic.
Yeah, my understanding of the land swap is taking a lot of, Snowbird has told us that they currently on land they have and under permitted uses can expand 50% or more, and that's with no change whatsoever. They just haven't done it yet.
There's a lot of issues with it. One, they have to have water, and Salt Lake City is hesitant to give water more than it should in certain areas.
And there's
Alta, the land that they want to swap Grizzly Gulch on the one side would give them maybe a couple acres at the base.
But it doesn't extend.
It doesn't actually expand the mountain, no.
Yeah, not at all. The next
Some
one.
accommodations.
Yeah.
The next one is Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons corridor plan, okay, which is 1.5. Carlos offered that project to CWC to manage themselves, which I thought also was interesting.
They're talking about,
Is it in the can?
third lane up and down Beach Road, and then what it could possibly be used for.
Big and Little Cottonwood Canyon is a corridor plan, it's whatever.
The plan for
Tolling is
certainly can't add a
tolling, I
lane
think,
of
is
traffic.
something I think we're definitely gonna see. I think it's gonna happen. Now, you implement it would be the new technology that you don't have to stop at a station to pay. It's based upon the technology. It'll just tell you how many people are in the vehicle. And if you got four people in a vehicle, you'll be charged nothing, but if you got one, you may be told, or something like that. So to incentivize people to carpool.
If you have a sticker or a scanner or something.
They have the technology that, yeah.
You send it to the car owner?
Yeah, I don't know. They know about it, right?
What I understood is they have technology that can look at a car and build a license plate number, and it can tell how many occupants are in the car and all sorts of things.
So the owner of the car gets the bill regardless who actually
Presumably.
be in it.
It's sort of being talked about, but it's that direction. But tolling is clearly something that they're going to look at.
I know the ones on the freeway work, because every time I drive past one of those flashing lights, I've noticed it changed different color for them.
And of course, bike lanes and pedestrian things are a high priority. And this last time, I didn't mean to spend a lot of time on this, and I'm sure I don't articulate it in detail because it's long-term planning that will go over the next 2 or 3 years. This next one is there's also $500,000 that UDOT has to identify locations for a parking structure. So that we know that as well.
Okay, and it's for parking structures, it could be or multiple locations. This is study this.
Well, primarily he's looking at 2 locations, possibly 3.
Well, can you share those with us?
Yeah.
Both public.
They have a need for 2,500 parking stalls. A lot of additional parking. My understanding is they are focusing, again, as part of the EIS, as part of their involvement in this master plan, on not filling a piece of land in the corridor with parking, but focusing on more centralized nodes, one being the gravel pit property, one being somewhere in the ballpark of 94th and Highland and Sand.
94th and Highland?
Yeah.
So not up at the mountain canyon?
Right, it's not as preferable, but I think the land ownership is more workable down there.
Well, I mean, either one, they're both, one nice thing about consolidating is if you do run it, if you do a smart system up and down with that third lane up and down the canyon, event, you could certainly get a lot of people to park there and get on there's buses running every 10 or 15 minutes.
And there's a third spot that we're considering?
I'm not aware of a third location. I haven't heard.
So, what are you, in terms of timing, the
Roll back out in spring with additional open houses.
and so this type of reality wouldn't happen for several years?
You would see this presented in an open concepts.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what John Thomas said. the year or two following.
And they'd obviously do like snow, is this like the order of priority, what do you think, the snow
That
transfers?
I can get clarification on.
That'd be great.
I don't know how many,
And that's just a study on that.
also, and not to take thunder away from Mike, but I know that just because of time, this and the interest me of trying to get my mind around how big this project really is, that they sent out an update today. Did you see that?
I saw it come
Today,
across
update,
in there.
and it said that they reviewed all the public comments and are extending some of the timing of it because of my comments. And the main issues that we went through all the public comments, then traffic congestion, canyon closures, and here's what I wanted to show you. Neighborhood congestion, Wasatch Boulevard, Y intersection.
Okay, I need to change my terminology, it's Y, not T.
Well, the Y intersection is the mouth.
Yeah, there's that's, yeah.
I think I wasn't sure from anybody, that's the mouth, really off. Parking on Road Street, canyon equity, tolling, transit service, and environmental impacts. But they haven't had on this one a lot of the high T issue there, I guess. Should we keep that? And also refer to here to Mountain Grove, all this is going on.
Is there something in the works to make that high key safer?
Yeah, they're doing it right now.
Well, they've got one lane on, northbound lane, yeah.
The longer merge lane.
Just means people as we turn into our neighborhood.
In our master plan, you talked about that section where we could have a little pony wall and then a pedestrian, so that as cars are going, they see people. Should Wasatch included in that?
That would run from, we're proposing it from city boundary to Fort Union Boulevard. And then a continuation of something like that when the gravel pit comes online. It's in UDOT's cross-section right now that they're proposing. I don't know the extent of it, but I assume it's the extent of Wasatch Boulevard. I can get clarification on that. At a minimum, it will be from the high to Fort Union Boulevard, but I'm fairly certain that it's the entire stretch all the way to the southern boundary of the city there.
All right, we'll try to take too much time on that. I just thought it was interesting pieces of information that a little bit inside of UDOT's thinking, and I was really interested in the budget amounts, some of the bullet items highlighted, and that Mike worked more closely with it, and I think Mike has always said anybody on the council, that as long as not more than 2 of us there is invited to attend. Exactly, I think we found John Thomas has been more than gracious in allowing us to comment. We need to stay connected, use the impact that we need. Because even Salt Lake County now is misinterpreting some of the things that are being said. So, anyway, the Central Wasatch Commission, I think it's very valuable, I think, for me to be involved, and I think it helps us as a city because we're located right here at the mouth of the canyon. I'll continue to keep you informed. Okay. All right, moving along on the agenda, we have a proposed sustainability resolution to look at.
Can I address that?
Please.
Councilmember Bruce had talked to me about this a few weeks ago, and I know a few months ago you talked about it in this meeting, a resolution, and there was some input provided by a number of people, including Councilmember Bracken. What we've done is we've taken the draft, worked with Shane, and this is the latest proposal. I think it includes all the intent language that was discussed at one time. There were things that were modified, including there was reference to incentives for businesses. We're probably not quite there yet on incentives, but to provide encouragement with them, and we can look at that down the road. There was wording in here related to hiring a sustainability resource coordinator. We still have some steps to move forward with other communities before we move. Is have you have your input tonight. If there's any additional modifications that you want to look at, and we would hope to get this on the business meeting agenda at our next city council meeting. Happy to answer any questions related to it.
I like it. Yeah, I read it, I liked it. There's been an uptick in the number of emails that I've seen coming in with citizens concerned about air quality initiatives, and that it really needs to be happening at the city level. And you can't shirk that responsibility. It's not going to happen. State or national, we need to tackle this.
I'm fine with everything other than the very last resolved. I'm not I'm just not sure what that means. And why.
The goal of achieving the renewable energy.
Well, shall develop a plan to pursue a goal.
That's the essence of it, though. That's really the nuts and bolts.
Well, okay, but I have a question. What does that mean?
What
does it mean? You want to have every ounce of electricity consumed by Cottonwood Heights be from a renewable source?
Yeah.
At every home and every there? That's what you read that to mean?
Well, it's develop a plan. We shall develop a plan.
Okay, well, there's still a target date, but I mean, 100% renewable supply within the city, again, because we've heard a couple of things. Like one of them was, so the city facilities are either renewable or generating or net zero. That's a huge step away from every home and piece of energy consumption in the city. So I had that same question. That's where that's vague to me. So.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's just conceptually, I'm just trying to identify what that really means.
I guess I would look at the league of cities that are already doing it, that are already on this commitment path, and have our plan to be with it.
So I don't know, is that just our buildings that the city owns, or is it every resident?
Yeah, it's a bit big.
That's all I'm saying.
I guess what I'm saying is that could be read either way. And we probably
I'm just saying, that's, other than that, everything else is.
1, 2, 3. The fourth one struck me. There was. I don't know that my suggestion on it would be, but it's just my first pass. I missed. A lot of the issues that we're dealing with here are not. Some are natural, a good chunk of them is natural. Inversions happen, they've happened for millennia here.
Where are you?
Fourth whereas about urbanization and geography. Anyways, I'll probably take a stab at that and look at it. It's,
I think our poor air quality is unquestionable.
Well, I guess part of that's quantifying. If you're going to blame it all on tailpipes, that's one thing. But there also needs to be an understanding.
Well,
some of it is.
I don't think we need to place blame. I think we need to acknowledge that we live in a snow globe, and regardless of where it's coming from, it needs to be addressed. Oslo, Norway, has a similar inversion that we do, and they're tackling it. They're actually seeing their quality improve year over year. So we can do.
from that, actually, I think probably the biggest thing that's gonna have a long-term impact on that is what the legislature did 2 or 3 years ago, where they actually got the tier 3s to come online. They're supposed to start producing next year.
Not all of them have done it though.
No, they're coming, and they also have to have cars that will burn it correctly, but over, as those cars come online and the fuel is produced here, if that knocks out 60 or 70% of the 40% coming out tailpipe.
So has everybody in the council had a chance to review this? Do you want to get a chance to look at it?
I mean, I think I heard you circle something, you probably have comments.
Just that same point, that last whereas.
I sometimes,
Or further rezone.
the 6th line down, I need to throw other energy resources under the bus.
Did you circle coal?
I did.
I circled coal too.
I don't know that it's important that's included there. I don't.
Just to say other, or traditional energy.
So on the last point, should we check with some of these other cities that are on the 2032 plan and see?
Yeah, I think it's just vague,
what that means?
yeah. I mean, it's not, it's pretty easy to come up with some language.
So the cities, I think most of the cities are trying to, Salt Lake City is trying to be 100% renewable for their city by 2020, but I think it's community-wide by 2032. I suspect that the drafter of this probably meant that this community-wide. I'm happy to share with you, Tim, the city of Fort Collins has a similar goal. They caveat it with several things, like cost-effective. I mean, they're just sort of have guardrails, and perhaps that might be something we wanted to.
You have some kind of guardrails in this that don't necessarily carry to that point.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
So I'll send you that.
And one big one is, I mean, at least as far, without Rocky Mountain, they're buying, we don't have a lot of utility to deal with some of those things.
There is I think, a piece of legislation, I don't know the details, that is being worked on right now to allow, I think it's a different rate schedule for those individuals within those cities to choose this pathway. So that is.
Well, I mean, things like that, there's some things that are outside
But
of
you can
us.
add that here.
So if you'll provide any input, we'll try to modify some of the wording here to make you feel more comfortable, but we'd like to get it on the agenda for we'll get that information, get it modified, and then get it sent back to you, and then we'll plan on taking this at the next meeting, if that's all right for the business.
Won't we get it? Okay.
I mean, I'd rather, let's get it right and make sure it's what we want. I told you, it's important. Here to see, I think we can make the kind of things we can do that. I don't know whether I would have to have it next time. So it's something we can certainly get to.
All right, moving down the agenda, on item 4E, annual schedule for regular meetings of the city council. Okay, Tim, I'll turn it over to you.
So I had a 45-minute presentation on this, but I guess I'll narrow it down here to 3 or 4 minutes. I'll be very quick on this. I've talked with each of you individually. We're interested in modifying our schedule and doing a few things. First of all, if you're agreeable to this, I would work with Paula on modifying our yearly schedule that we're required to submit to the state to reduce the number of meetings we have per month to 2 weeks a month, or two days a month. In a memo that I sent to you, we talked about, and I've talked with you individually about looking at these meetings being on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday. But I do want to talk real briefly. That would work fine, but the 1st and 3rd Tuesday would create less conflicts. The conflicts being, if we're into November and December, we have Thanksgiving and the holidays in December, and then the June meetings, we are required to get the budget finalized and adopted by June 21st. And so we would only have 1 meeting in June to do that. So We can do either way, but either the first or third or second, fourth, but based on those issues, we probably recommend the first and third Tuesdays. So that's the first part of the proposal. The second is we would work towards providing a packet of information to you 1 week in advance. And part of the reason for just 2 meetings is to provide more information to you for you to review a week in advance. So as we come to the meetings, it would be you'd have more information and be able to ask the questions that you need at that point. We just feel like it would help in the efficiency and help you in the information dissemination through this process. And then we would really work on meeting tracking documents that would be provided to you probably on a weekly basis. Paula has been working on this and with me, and we would have a 3 to 4 month schedule of what we're proposing on each of the agendas, and then move forward with that. As things become more of a high priority, we could make those adjustments, but that tracking document is going to be critical, not only for you, but also for staff members to provide the documentation you need a week in advance. So that is what our proposal is. So the proposal really is the first and third Tuesdays, and we would like to implement that beginning in November. The packet may be difficult to get to you if we start the first meeting, which is coming up fairly quickly. But that's what we're proposing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Actually, when you were saying that, I figured, well, we've already scheduled our business meeting second, fourth, through the end of the year, maybe we start in January up here, because we can do that too.
Tim?
I think it makes a good point when you think of November, December on Thanksgiving.
Christmas is Tuesday, we won't be.
As I'm saying, historically, we altered our schedule anyway. The first Tuesday in November is also election night. So typically, sometimes that's an issue, and sometimes it's not. Typically, we allow people to.
Mostly met. We've also taken
We've done both, right?
Seems like on the federal schedule, on the federal schedule, but on the not city schedule, we generally met.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just so you know, we went to the publisher today with the schedule having the business meeting on the 2nd and 4th of November. So the November is published that way in the newsletter, and we put the, if necessary, on the work sessions on the 1st and 3rd. That's the way it is for November, at least in the newsletter. So it might be misleading there. Just thought you all should know before you make a choice immediately.
Tuesday, Thanksgiving, or no, let's see, second, fourth takes us off Thanksgiving week in November. But at least that one, we keep it up the second and fourth, the fourth Tuesday in December is Christmas, so maybe that would be the time.
So we could definitely do the 2nd, 4th in November, and then
First and third moving forward.
First and third moving forward. If you're okay with that.
Feelings, comments, support, not support?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat, what is the offer, or what is the recommendation?
Recommendation is that we go to 2 meetings a month, not 4 unless there's a special need.
Sure, just starting of it though.
And the start would be beginning in November. We would go to 2 meetings, 2nd and 4th in November, and then move into the 1st and 3rd in December and throughout next year.
And this first meeting in December, I believe is scheduled for the city.
It is. That's correct. That's correct. So we may have to make some modifications there. We'll make the modifications, but it's the concept 2 meetings a month, and then we'll adjust the schedule based on the need until the beginning of next year, and you'll get it posted for the 2 meetings throughout next year.
Are you, I like the idea of having the agenda sort of filled in 3 or 4 months in advance. Is there a way that we'll communicate that with the citizens? I know one of the, I've heard it a lot, maybe others have too, is just wanting to know what's going to, what could be on the agenda coming up so they can plan their schedules to be here or to take a trip. Would that be on the website, or would that be someplace that's tentative?
This is an internal document.
Correct.
We could we'll have to think that through a little bit on how we want to do that, because it changes, and I don't want to get expectations out there that this is the exact date that we're going to do this, when maybe something isn't ready to be on that date. So we can look at
sooner.
We can look at how we can address that. Give me some time, and I'll do that.
Remember correctly, when we started out the year, I think conceptually this is where we wanted to go. So I applaud Tim for, when he came in, he jumped right on it, and I'm fully supportive. I think the most critical thing here is that we get back to our list of priorities that we started early in the year, and get those built into some action schedule. So it's kind of not the tail wagging the dog, but we focus on those priorities. And obviously there'll still be time to add in things that come up, of course, to really get focused back on that strategic planning.
Move forward with this.
I think the staff is well deserving of it every other week.
Yeah, that's the other great benefit is we don't have staff spend as much time here. They'll spend more time on preparing some reports for us, but they'll save that time here. And what I've heard over this year too is it's not so much just that staff are here tonight, it's what it does then to the rest of their week as far as workload and catching up and time off. So I think it's a win-win situation there.
Maybe make one more, and I brought this up again when part of it gets done. As much as I love email, what I was hoping, at least for some of these documents, like this document that Mike goes and reviews it, I would like to see a common folder and maybe get a little bit of training for us, so that if we have something coming up, we can look in a folder that we all can view and share to find what documents we're looking at. And if someone's made a comment, we can see those rather than having revisions or trying to mesh, like if I make comments and then Mike make comments and you try to put them together. Our OneDrive allows us to do that, to where we can actually look at common folders. I'd like to see if we can do
I think there's a step even further. So you have all of these documents, and if you put them all in a common folder, pretty soon that common folder is going to be enormous, and the organization of it is difficult. But if you use the right technologies, you can attach the documents, all of the associated documents, to the task or project. And that kind of technology, I think, would be really helpful here, because you have so many documents that just float through your hands, and unless
I don't have my bag. This
Yeah.
is one time I
Unless
have my
you're
bag.
Christine and you carry them all with you, which is remarkable.
Well, no, yeah, I mean, I don't know whether the folders are by week or by whatever, but somewhere where we can go find it. So I said,
But
okay,
the
I want to do
concept
it.
is get them online.
Yeah,
Get them
even
where
if
we
you
can
do
see.
it by time, that's not all that helpful, because you have to remember the time, the project that you're working on. If you can associate
Right.
with that, it's
I
just so much
I
easier.
suspect with the way the Office 365 is set up, that it's doable. We need to figure out how, and then we need to be trained and be willing to do it ourselves, so we can take advantage of it.
Okay? So administratively, there we go. All right, with that, we adjourn to our business meeting and reconvene at the end of the